that kind of, and every conversation explores beyond of thinking, beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's a founder and strategy Y and fintech review, none other than Mr. Tristan Pelloux.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Welcome, welcome, Mr. Tristan. Abstract Essay, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I met?
As you say, I'm the founder of Strategy and FinTech Review. I founded these businesses after spending a few years in London, and now I live in Spain, but I spend time in various places. Like today, I'm in Germany. So I'm focusing on strategic advisory to businesses in various industries, and I also run FinTech Reviews that you can see here. That is an online media on the fintech industry.
Guten Tag, Guten Morgen, or Guten Abend. Okay, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Tristan. I'm gonna give you a cheering squad. Usually I use the clapping squad, but while you are from different countries, from Germany, from Spain, from France, so cheering squad is for you. So today let's talk about how business really make decisions. So the myth of rationality. The textbook model for rational data driven process. If let's say business is become workout if you decide something that make the business better. So tell us how business really make decisions to make the business better.
Um, Actually, yeah, it's quite interesting because also what I didn't mention is that there is also another aspect to my life, which is academia. That's why I'm in Germany right now. I'm teaching at university, and I'm doing PhD research as well on how businesses make decisions and execute their strategy.
Mhm.
And as you say, you would expect things to be rational, and you have an idea and you want to do something, and then it flows naturally into results and outcomes. The reality is most businesses do not have the right system in place, the right framework and process to do that. So it's mostly the leadership that will say, we want to do something, we want to be the leader in something. And then people within an organization interpreting what that means. And then you often have this disconnect between the vision and what the founder wanted, and then what actually happened. Um, but although some organizations do have a feedback loop that allows to on a regular basis align things to make sure that the execution is aligned with the idea.
Mr. Tristan, how often does the highest paid person's opinion truly override data and consensus in what kinds of decisions? Is this most dangerous or surprisingly effective?
Um, I think that it will depend a lot on the culture of the company or the organization, whether it's more top down, as you would say here, is that it would be a 10, is very top down organization. Someone who's at the top says we do something, and then it flows and it cascades down. Um, and then organizations that are a bit more bottom up, um, in that scenario, their decision is this. But you do need leadership I think, in my opinion, you still do need a bit of direction. Otherwise, it becomes a collective effort where it might be great, but you're not moving fast enough. You do need arbitrage from someone that says, as you were saying, I'm the highest paid here, so let's do this, and then you move. Otherwise, but with the insights from from the teams, right? Is that it's a mixed approach, top down, bottom up.
Decision theater, Mr. Tristan. How much a decision making process is actually political theater designed to validate a choice that key power players have already made informally?
Uh, that's a very good point. Indeed, um, there is an element here of ensuring that people feel heard, um, and that people feel that they're part of the decision, even though you already know what you're gonna do and you already know the direction. And so it's about putting out their options, even though you already lean um, towards one option in particular. Um, However, in my experience, if you want, for instance, to do a big project, a big transformation, you do need to do that because you need buy-in. You need people to get on board with the idea. Even if you already know what you want to do, you still do need to involve people in that process. So this theater, um, because at the end of the day, especially large organizations, but also smaller ones, are a reflection of there are many societies. Is that you do need to manage interactions, you need to understand people's expectations, aspirations. They want to feel important somehow. So you do need to manage that as you take decisions.
Interesting, Mr. Tristan. The speed versus quality trade off. In the fast moving markets, when it's a good enough decision made quickly more valuable than a perfect decision made slowly. How do high performing organizations know which mode to be in?
Um, I think that speed is quite important nowadays and goes back to the point of having process and systems in place to be able to do these decisions quickly, understand if these decisions are the right ones, and then revert. So have a feedback loop. It's actually the topic of what I'm teaching here in Germany, which is management information systems, building the right, having the right systems in place to have data that allows you to take decisions. These decisions will lead to results. These results will go back to how you make decisions. And this is where, but if you don't have the systems in place, you can't make fast decisions. And it's more important right now to make decisions quickly, to be able to, if it's the right one, test and iterate and move on, rather than spend a lot of time analyzing, leading to analysis paralysis. And especially right now with generative AI and other systems, you get a lot of insights, a lot of information, a lot of data. So if you want to spend time analyzing a decision, you can spend as much time as you want. You can stay in loop with ChatGPT asking questions about a plan, about a decision, without ever taking that decision. So you do need to understand at some point, let's spend 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, time bound analysis before we take a decision. Otherwise, you do spend too much time analyzing. And right now, as I said, with AI, this is even more an issue in my view.
In your view, Mr. Tristan, The data as a weapon. We think that the data as objective. How often do you see data selectively curated or framed to support a pre existing agenda or to win an internal debate?
Um, I think it's always been the case. I've been working in strategy for more than 10 years. And I know perfectly well what you can do with data. You can make it say what you want it to say, um, be it for a financial decision or for whatever strategic decision, because there is always a way to interpret it. Of course, up to a certain extent. However, data is not dry. I mean, it's no, these are numbers, but we're not talking about mathematics here. We're talking about using numbers to tell a story, to take a decision, and there are always various ways to look at it, and you always need, whenever a decision is taken, to take the data with a pinch of salt. Um, so obviously important to have data-driven decisions, and that's always what I recommend. And I always say that gut feeling and a feeling for something is great to push you in the direction to find the right data to back up your decision. However, when you're on the other side and someone presents you decision based on data, you're allowed to question how they've interpreted the data in order to come up with that particular conclusion. But I think it's fair that you would interpret a number in various ways. And as I said, it's never dry. Data is not dry.
The committee sickness. How do group dynamics and the desire for consensus in committees like to water down risk averse or blatantly flawed decisions that no individual would make alone?
Um, Indeed, I think that there is always this bias where you you get a bunch of people in the room and you try to get everybody on board on a decision, um, and you don't take into account all the factors, because what you want is to get to a point where, what I said, you want buy-in, you want to ensure that this is going to lead to results, um, and you don't look at it in the same way as if you were doing it on your own. Um, but in the same time, I think whether or not you are risk averse comes down again to company culture. Some companies are really risk averse, are really thinking about what could go wrong rather than what could go well. And it's the same for individuals. Then it goes to behaviors within a committee. So if you have a lot of people that are risk averse, including some that have a certain leadership style, they might influence the decision of the group in a way that is uh, is different in another organization where everybody is like, yeah, let's do it, and never think about risks. So I think it's part of group dynamics.
It's a part for sure. The unspoken rule of risk, Mr. Tristan, is the primary goal of many corporate decisions actually to avoid personal blame for failure rather than to maximize outside for the company. How does the CYA culture manifest?
Yeah, I think that's especially because I'm a consultant, so I'm usually brought in to for that very specific reason, which is you want a consultant so that if something goes wrong, then you can always pin it on the external guy, And that's the number one reason, in my view, why people do take consultants on board for things that they could do themselves. And I think it's part of the yeah it's part of the game, in especially in large corporate organizations, which leads to a bit of paralysis on moving ahead with important projects, with transformation, because you often do not have cultures that reward taking a chance on something. You're much more likely to do well if you navigate the waters without making too much waves, and and that means ensuring that your decisions are not going to come back to you and people can blame you for failure. I haven't met many people that are embracing this fully, which makes sense because in many cases, if you do something wrong, someone will blame you. If you do something well, your boss will take credit. And then if something goes wrong, usually you cannot blame the people that are working for you. So that leads to a culture of hiring consultants, which it works well for me. So that's. But I understand very well this dynamic.
Mr. Tristan's the customer voice illusions. Companies claim to be customer centric. In reality, how far removed is the average major strategic decision from direct, unfiltered customer input? Whose voice actually fills the gap?
Um, yeah, I think most organizations will indeed claim that they're customer centric, even though you know that in the decisions, not a lot of customer feedback is looped in. What fills the gap is hopefully analysis, like secondary data, market information that will allow you to make a better decision in the absence of actual customer feedback. But in most cases, what fills the gap is some executive feeling about the market, some assumptions, and that leads to imperfect decisions because you would assume that someone wants a product, someone wants a service, even though that might not be the case. So that's what fills the gap, unfortunately. But I think it's just to be conscious of it whenever you're looking at a decision that has been taken.
Mr. Tristan, the two pizza team secret. Is it the best business decision making often by small empowered teams, while the worst is done by a large sprawling committees? Why is the scale the enemy of good decisions?
I think it's because it goes back to your earlier points about trying to reach at any cost a consensus, trying to get a buy-in from a larger group. I think when you're in a smaller group, it's easier to convince two or three people and convince 20 or 30, and that's what is slowing down decision making. The only way that it can work is if you have a committee where what you're trying to do is more informing people rather than trying to convince them. But then it's not really a committee anymore. That's the only way because it comes down to a law of numbers, which is it's uh, it's much harder to convince 20 people at the same time that have a different view of the world and different ways to convince them, rather than two, three people that you can handle one by one more easily.
The boardroom dynamic, Mr. Tristan. How much do board decisions hinge on the personal relationships and past experience of the directors versus the actual board books and presentation in front of them?
Um, I think that most in larger organizations, more mature, the former will be more important in the sense that the board will have been shaped in a way that reflects some dynamics around investors, around CEOs wanting friends that they can rely on the board. Um, so that dynamic will play a bigger role, and we can see it in some large mature organizations. And then in newer companies, I guess it comes down to the later, so the actual board's role. But I don't have data on it, and actually, it would be interesting. I think the the board structure is a good idea to validate management decisions. However, most cases it doesn't fulfill really this, and it's more for decorum rather than actually challenging the management on the decision that they're taking. For valid reason as well is that you also don't want to reach that point where the leadership cannot do anything because they're blocked by a board that wants to take them in another direction, even though they're not as involved in the business.
The meeting after the meeting, Mr. Tristan, how critical are the informal conversations in the hallway over text or at the bar after the official meeting to what gets decided officially later?
Um, I think it comes down to the importance of the meeting and the importance of the project. In some of these projects where you know that you will need extra support beyond, especially if it's let's say it's a large committee, as we were describing earlier. You do need to spend time before and after to try to get the message across, ensure that there are no objections that might derail the meeting, and then afterwards ensure that you're really aligned on the execution and way forward. So I do think it's important in some settings to, and sometimes it's really critical to, and I've seen it even recently, which is that you do need to have pre-discussions to ensure that the meeting goes well with other people, and then afterwards have follow-ups with some, let's say you identify in a group some people that might be problematic for the execution of that project. So you will ensure afterwards that you're really aligned and they're not gonna, they might not have said anything in the meeting, but they might block some elements after. So you do need to ensure that it's not the case.
The survivorship bias, Mr. Tristan. We study successful decisions. What is a common pattern in the bad decisions that you see repeated across companies, and what blind spot does it represent?
Um, I think what I've seen the most is a personal bias in the sense that personal experiences will tend to affect how people take a decision or see something. So let's say I've had a big bad experience with a hotel, and then we have to take a decision on hey, whether or not we invest in that hotel chain, and someone will say, well, I've had a bad experience with this hotel in that town one time, and that will shape the way that they perceive something. And I've seen it many times, which is statistically not relevant. So they have a personal experience that affects them uh, with I don't know, banking, with whatever, restaurant, hotel, and will shape a bit the way that they see and they take a decision. And I would always challenge people on this, but that's not statistically relevant. That's not relevant data, your personal experience. Or, yeah, you have a friend that had a bad experience with this, or my mom had a bad experience with this. Um, and that's the biggest risk whenever, because then you end up taking a decision based on a personal feeling rather than objective data. So it becomes a subjective decision. And this, I've seen it countless of times.
The bigger risk, for sure. What has happened for a large established company to make a truly broad or truly bold and counter-cultural transformative decision? Does it always require a crisis, Mr. Tristan?
Um, it's true that in a crisis, you're more likely to make a big, bold decision because in many cases you don't have the choice. So you're back against the wall. It's either you do something or you do nothing and you collapse. Um, I do think it's much more likely because if things are going okay, then you don't have an incentive uh, to make any big changes. The only alternative here is what the management would try to do is create a sense of urgency um, in order to push the organization in a different direction. So you would say, look, the market is changing, our competitors are taking over. We do need to make big changes, and then that will be your way to shift things in a direction or another. But otherwise, there are no incentives for you as a leader to make big changes if things are working, because the first pushback you're gonna get is, okay, but things are working fine. So why do you want to break something that works well or works average? Um, so the only way is to create this sense of urgency and to bring data in the mix, saying, look, the market is changing. Um, we see these trends are gonna destroy our business within 2, 3, 5 years. And this comes with, as a leader, you do need to try to get sell this vision, this medium to long term vision, and bring it back to what needs to happen right now in order to achieve this vision. And this vision can be a negative, and you can say, if we do not do anything, if we don't do anything now, we're going to realize this negative vision in the future.
Mr. Tristan, I have a new podcast called Entrepreneurship 101. Will you be my guest over there and let's talk about business mindset if
Yeah,
you are
sure.
interested?
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in no, sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season as well, comedy 101 in third season, and of course my food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 our fourth season, science 101, sex 101 in its third season, my baby podcast, Trivia 101, Low 101, and Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Tristan, Your one piece of advice for a mid career manager listening who wants to influence a better decisions in their organizations. What is one piece of hard won advice you'd give them on how to navigate the real process?
Um, so I would say two things. One is to understand other people's, let's say, desire and expectations. In the sense, you need to at some point understand other people's agenda. What what is an incentive in backing you in backing that decision? So you do need to find a way to get them on board by creating a sort of personal incentive for them. That's my first piece of advice, and my second piece of advice is bring in data in the mix, bring insights, be the person that is backing all the decisions with actual data, as opposed to being driven by gut feeling, because that works for a while, but eventually you will have more chances of success by being data driven.
Mr. Tristan Pelloux, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, your projects, or anything you want to promote on Abstract Essay?
Thanks for having me, in general.
Yes, so looking forward for our next second episode for Entrepreneurship 101, and let's talk about business mindset. So, Mr. Tristan, would you like to plug in something, anything, projects or website?
Yeah, I think that if people want to learn more about fintech, crypto, finance, they can check out Fintech Review. There's also a newsletter, Fintech Review Weekly, where they will get insights on what's going on in the world of fintech.
Fintech. So, what is all fintech is all about?
Fintech is about how you use technology to um, deliver financial services. So it's a wide area of things that touch on technology, innovation, strategy. It's linked to banking, crypto, and insurance, wealth management, a number of areas to do with money flows.
Mr. Tristan, you need to come to my entrepreneurship 101 every week, every
Yeah,
month, or anything you're available. I'm so happy if you will do that for me. So, people, let's about Mr. Tristan Pillow, because if you support him for sure, more and more fintech review will rise. So, Mr. Tristan, thank you so much for your time.
thank you. Bye bye.
Modican people, see you soon.